Yes, I passed. I just passed my NASM CPT using the 6th edition of the book. I had taken the action personal training exam using self-guided study with like a book and some kind of online modules. I think in 2018 I took the action course. At the time, action was NCAA accredited and it was super cheap. They had 2 exams, the exam online with the certificate and the additional pay exam that was accredited. And by the time I finished, I got my certificate. None of the gyms around here like them. They're not on the list like ACE and NASM, and I think there's a couple others that are more highly regarded, so I didn't go forward with the secondary exam. Instead, I started gearing up to take ACSM's test, but then this Christmas, these guys had a really good deal. So here's the deal. I have studied this since December 23rd. It's January 9th. So I studied for approximately 3 weeks. In fact, let's look at a calendar and see how long did I study. 2 weeks and 3 days, 17 days. So I studied for 17 days, including today, and then I took the test. And brace yourself for this. I passed the test in 27 minutes. It wasn't easy. Although I had studied personal training content before, they have their own terminology, like the OPT model is a NASM thing, just like ACE has their own diagrams and modalities for things. Obviously, planes of motion and certain anatomical terms and functions of the body in various systems. I memorized everything everybody on YouTube says is true. The overhead squat assessment is a huge part of the test. Learning what's overactive and underactive, but more specifically learning what's overactive and underactive from the lateral view versus the anterior view. Because of it with shortened and lengthened muscles and overactive, underactive. Just like somebody else said in a video I watched, learning the different types of flexibility, 3 categories of stretching and what that contains. Also, something I needed to study more is the cues. What would you cue an athlete to do a ball cobra or a side lunge? And they give you like 4 choices of what you would say to them. That was a little bit tricky. The nutrition was almost non-existent. I answered 1 cardiac question. Seriously. I don't really remember much about the endocrine system like there was on the practice tests. There wasn't a ton of questions about the bones like the osteoclasts or the osteoblasts. There was a lot of common sense to do with customer service, know the stages of change. There was several questions about, in terms of that, like pre-contemplation, contemplation, action, what stage are they in? You need to know how Golgi tendons work and what muscle spindles are. Understand what a sarcomere is or you're not going to pass. I didn't get asked about the functions of blood, surprisingly. There was some general questions as far as scope of practice. What are you allowed to say or not allowed to say? Know the purpose of the PAR-Q form, and if you need to refer somebody for medical clearance. There was a couple questions about the planes, frontal, sagittal, and transverse. Know where you use the calipers to measure body fat percentage. Have an understanding of what category. There's, like, to me, some of these exercises were super weird. I'm an athlete, I box and I powerlift, and I don't deal with these. So understand if something is a hop, it's probably a strength level exercise. Understand if the word balance is in the exercise, like a something level multiplanar balance, then it's probably in stabilization endurance or stabilization exercise. There's some clues. Look at the wording and see, active, stabilization and balance. Any kind of chopping motion in an exercise falls into a power category, and you can just use your ingenuity and your good sense to figure that. Know the SAQ, speed, agility, quickness. Know what those 3 categories mean. Know what the Shark skills test is and when it's utilized. Know about the general adaptation syndrome, alarm resistance, and exhaustion. I mean, honestly, if anybody's already exhibiting physical symptoms on any level, it's almost... And then the acute variables, what everybody said was true. They only asked about the resistance portion, which was still challenging to memorize since there's several, but know how many reps, how many sets, how many variety of exercises, as in 1 to 2 body parts or 2 to 3 exercises. How long should the rest break be? Know hypertensive clients and pregnant clients, when not to have them supine, or what is the preferred exercise, at what point with a pregnant client should she not be supine or doing specific exercises. They were pretty easy questions, but both of them came up. Go over what percentage of the diet should be protein, carbs, and fat. It was slightly easier than I expected. I took the final practice twice and the practice exam before that, I think it used to be called the midterm, only once. And then I used some flashcards I made, and I used some flashcards on Quizlet. If the only thing you studied was the overhead squat assessment and imbalances and flexibility, there's a chance you could get a 70. I'm not recommending that. You get the letter saying you passed, I passed, I'm done. So I hope that helps. If there's any questions, message me or leave a comment. 27 minutes, what did I say, 17 days? That's fast. If I can do it, anybody can do it.